Hey fellow tankers, it's Mobius Y here with some more game replays. And just like the last several game replays, these replays are my very first two games in the US Tier 9 tank destroyer, the T30. Now, normally in game replays I simply pick a tank I feel like playing, I play a few games, I record them, and I upload them and share them with you guys, whether or not they're good or bad games. But in this case I was working on my grind for the T110E4. And these first two games in the T30, I was still playing them in a, well, one of them in particular, in a fully upgraded state. I have I have an overabundance of free XP, so I never have to play a stock tank ever again. So, this very first game here with the T30, I'm not actually playing this tank fully upgraded. I decided to try out the T30 in this first game using the same 120mm gun that is used on the fully upgraded T28 prototype in the previous tier, at tier 8 there. So I decided to go with this gun first as it has better aim time, overall soft stats for gun handling. It actually has better DPM at the cost of lower alpha damage per shot as well as lower penetration values. So going into this very first game here, I knew that the T30 was essentially another tank on the T29 chassis, just like the T29 itself, as well as the T34 Tier 8 US Premium Heavy Tank. So the turret, while it's not that great from the sides and the rear, and it has a hatch on the top that can be penetrated from very high penetration guns, the front of it is actually quite well armored, especially the gun mantlet area. The gun mantlet is extremely thick on this kind of turret for all three of those tanks, which is the T29, the T30, and the T34. So I knew that going hull down was going to be my friend if I could do it where possible. The hull armor is not that great even at tier 7 on the T29, so I knew at tiers 9 and especially at tier 10 it was not going to do me any good whatsoever. So defensively I wanted to utilize hull down tactics as best as I could, and I figured with this smaller 120mm gun I would try and punish the opposition by shooting them from afar and simply punishing them with DPM when they overexpose themselves, hopefully getting a track shot on them, allowing me to get off a second shot, doing possibly 800 damage right off the bat. But at the very beginning of this match, on port, which was an encounter battle, I didn't really think of it at the time, but I wound up putting myself in a really stupid position. And I was also blocking my platoon mate Asmodeus from trying to back up into cover quite a lot there. Just really poor maneuvering and positioning on my part. Taking a second shot at the AMX 5100 behind the train tracks to my right, I actually got battered and lost half of my HP quite easily there. Aiming in on the T28 prototype, you can see the accuracy of this gun and the aim time is still pretty good, even on the T30. It's a fairly respectable gun on the T28 prototype when it's fully upgraded. The penetration is solid, absolutely solid. It's even really good for tier 8 at 248. At tier 9 it's still pretty respectable, 248 penetration, but at tier 10 when you have heavy tanks that have more penetration and tank destroyers that have way more penetration than you, then I expected to possibly run into more trouble in tier 10 games if I was going to continue to use this gun. Now, another thing I couldn't decide on with this tank is the consumables I wanted to use. Right now I have a small repair kit, automatic fire extinguisher, because I pretty much always have an automatic fire extinguisher these days, and cola to help reduce reload speeds, aim time with the gun, improve the traversing of the turret, because like the previous tanks in this line, the turret traverse on the T30 is quite abysmally poor. Now, the problem with having this kind of consumable setup is the shot from the tortoise that went into my hull actually killed my driver, and I have no means of reviving him back into optimal battle status. So I wound up having to play the rest of this game out with no driver. So while the T30 is not that maneuverable of a tank, it is definitely more maneuverable than the T28 prototype. I had no driver, so this thing was not going to go anywhere anytime soon. So I knew I was pretty much stuck in this position that I put myself in, which at this point in the game I severely regret, as it's just really, really bad positioning. I can't get shots on the tanks that need to be shot. And the shots that I do have, they're from extremely long range, and I don't have the accuracy to reliably hit the weak points that I need to aim for. For example, earlier with the Tortoise, I shot about 3 or 4 rounds at him, and only one of them penetrated, getting a really lucky shot on the T30 that was trying to duck down from the bridge far over to my right. I guess he found himself in a pretty poor position as well. I thought defensively this would be an okay location, as if anybody else came up on the bridge, or if I had to, I could focus my attention to one side of this bridge, and then I'd have my fairly protective gun mantlet facing the enemies that were trying to shoot at me. However, to get the shots that I needed to in order to inflict some damage, I had to really overexpose myself, potentially getting myself shot up from either side of the bridge, at which point I would have zero protection, because the T30 has pretty lackadaisical hull armor, to be totally honest. So just maneuvering around, getting spotted, not sure what from, trying to look for shots in the enemy tanks. It looked like I had a shot in this Tiger II, but I could only see the top of his turrets, so I decided against it. And looking around, still seeing that I don't have a shot on the Carnarvon, which was pretty much one shot for myself or any of my platoon mates. Also the IS-3 over there, which I don't have a shot on whatsoever. And I'm barely peeking over this bridge, and something is spotting me. I didn't know what it was, so I was just being overly cautious, to be totally honest. There's only 4 tanks left. They're all on my left side, so I decided I need to get some damage. I'm going to be aggressive, pushing forward on this Tiger II, planting a shot into his front drive wheel, and tracking him in place again for some teammates to continue shooting him. I managed to get the reload off so I could get one more shot into the Tiger II, finishing off for 4 HP. The friendly autoloader directly beneath me, not sure what tank it was, but he did a really good job putting a lot of damage on that Tiger II very quickly. Now those were kind of the reasons I wanted to at least try this first 120mm gun, because it had a faster rate of fire, better damage per minute, better overall gun handling than the 155mm gun, but the results of this game really didn't do it justice, I don't think. Only 1,644 damage dealt, with 100 assisted damage, and I only had 5 penetrations. So I could have had possibly about 2,000 damage if I was able to hit that Tiger II for another shot for more than 4 damage, but that wasn't the case, as he was on very low health. So not a very impressive game whatsoever. I felt like I did pretty much nothing. I kind of just sat on top of that bridge and got shot up a lot. So this second game here, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to try the 155 here. Not only did I change the gun being used, but I changed my overall play style with this tank. I was going to get in the face of the enemy tanks more, and I was going to use it kind of more in a brawling role, utilizing peekaboom tactics, as I knew most tanks that I come across, I could simply out-alpha them with peekaboom tactics. If both an enemy tank and myself were using peekaboom on each other, let's say a common tier 9 heavy tank, an E75, was playing peekaboom with me. Well, he's only got about 500 alpha damage. I've got 750. It doesn't matter that he has a little bit more hit points than I do. If he is not utilizing his fast rate of fire to simply out-DPM me, I would very well kill an E75 one-on-one, regardless of how much damage I took. So right off the bat here on Ruinberg, still platooned with Player TD and Asmodeus, turning over to the right, trying to get into the north side of the town here, in this assault variant of the Ruinberg War. Ruinberg has become one of my favorite maps in this game. I understand it would play extremely differently without all of the piles of building poop laying around all over the place, or rubble, if you want to call them by their technical term. But the war variant has become one of my favorite maps in the game, as these rubble piles really lend an extra... I'm not even sure how to word it properly. They really lend an extra amount of cover, obviously, but they create different firing lanes and brawling corners and whatnot just by being there. The normal version of Ruinberg doesn't have all these rubble piles in the middle of the street and whatnot. So in fact, even the town area is actually very open. It's very wide open. You've got very long sight lines, very long shooting lanes, where tanks can actually utilize their view range and whatnot. And there's just these big open spaces where if you catch a tank off guard, even halfway down a street before the next street, then I mean they can take a lot of damage because they're just so exposed. But with all these rubble piles everywhere, you can play a much more It's a much more kind of brawling kind of situation here. So, first shot with the 155 on the Tortoise, penetrating the weak spot that I was commonly aiming for with the 120mm in the previous game, and immediately seeing the difference with the extra penetration on this gun. This gun has about 30mm more penetration than the 120mm gun, as well as definitely higher alpha damage. So I was still playing conservative, waiting for this Tortoise to fire his shot at the friendlies around me, namely the IS-7 behind me, which was happening quite often. This IS-7 did a very good job this game soaking shots up for me. I didn't want to have my health pool depleted by this Tortoise where possible, so I waited for the Tortoise to fire, and then I would peek out, take my shot, and that's how I got a lot of damage off on that Tortoise, getting two penetrating hits for full damage, and then getting a third hit to take out that Tortoise once and for all from this game. So the friendly IS-7 is still behind me, in a great position to back me up here. Seeing this enemy IS-7 roll up to where the Tortoise pretty much just got killed, planted a nice shot into the IS-7, avoiding the spaced armor above the tracks and landing it directly behind the tracks in the weaker armor plating on the side of the IS-7. A really well placed shot doing full damage to the IS-7. So he's in quite a bit of a pickle as we are essentially surrounding him. And once again I waited for the IS-7 to fire at the friendly IS-7, giving me my opportunity to peek out and smash him for over 800 damage with this massive gun. Immediately noticing the difference in gun performance, not just the alpha damage and the higher penetration and all that, but the gun handling as well. This gun, I should say, has a much longer reload speed than the 120mm for sure, and much worse gun handling. I have to spend more time aiming my shots with this gun, so I knew I'd have to play pretty carefully in that I don't overextend myself in a situation where I can get whacked just waiting to aim in or for a reload. Peeking out, snapping a shot off on the side of the T30. I actually felt I was pretty lucky that it penetrated and didn't get absorbed by the tracks there, but I wasn't complaining. I knew the enemy T95 and T30 were both fully upgraded, also sporting 105mm guns as well. The T95 turns just a little bit too far to his right, allowing me to put a nice shot into his drive wheel, not only tracking him, but damaging him as well, making him absolutely helpless to all the flanking that the opponents did, that my other friendlies did. This Object 704, VK-45 Bravo, and Asmodeus putting a nice snipe shot onto that T-95 to take him out of the game once and for all. So that leaves one more tank destroyer over here. Unfortunately, our VK Bravo did not wait for myself and the 704 to fully reload and take a shot. I wanted to take the shot for the VK Bravo in this instance, as I was still full health at this point. So the VK Bravo gets taken out. Me and the 704 go in. I bounced my shot right off the gun mantlet, showing off the gun mantlet on this tank still holds up even to high penetration rounds, such as the 155mm gun on a T30. This thing sports 279 penetration, and that gun mantlet still just shrugged it off like it was nothing. But the 704 was able to get behind him, finish him off, and we pretty much won this whole flank. So I knew that most of my teammates were probably thinking of just hopping on the cap, even though we were up 5-4. I wanted more damage, so I simply turned around. I knew that the mediums were going to try and flank through the north side of town that we just came through, so I simply turned around to make give myself a presence here. I was going to pull up to this rubble pile here and just stop at this corner, so that any of their mediums that came around the corner, I could simply whack them for a pretty nasty hit, as they would still be losing a good third of their HP, even to this 155mm gun. The T-54 pulled in front of me, immediately backed right off, not wanting to deal with me whatsoever. Looking to my right, I also saw the VK-45 Alpha moving in, but it's at this point that we capped the base here for the win on that game. Not really too pleased with the win, as they had their last couple tanks were very weak and we could have very easily overpowered them. But a massive difference in performance just with the way I played, as incorporating a different playstyle as well as utilizing the fully upgraded 155mm gun. 4,551 damage dealt. Massive improvement over the previous gun. So I knew this was going to be the gun I'm going to use, even with the worst DPM and gun handling. Anyways, folks, those were my first two games of the T30. Hope you enjoyed watching. I hope to see you for the full review of the T30 in the next episode of The Road to the E4. Happy tanking!